in 3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the KD Ratio Podcast. Tonight, I'm your host, Dylan, and with me I'm joined by...
Your favorite, William.
And just William.
That's right, baby.
Kyle's currently out doing some exciting stuff that we don't want to tell you. We'll let him do his own news. But we're going to start off tonight. We missed the last couple of podcasts.
I
last
know.
One.
We've been streaming, but we failed the podcast.
Yeah, so there's been a ton of news that came out recently, and we're going to go through it one by one and kind of touch on each one. So first, Billy, let's talk about the Diablo 4 beta, because I know you are super hyped for this game.
Well, it's funny because I've never played a Diablo game before, and I didn't even get hyped for the game seeing the trailer, even though I called the trailer the greatest trailer
of all time.
What's funny is because it doesn't show any gameplay. It was the greatest cinematic trailer, and I just thought it was so damn epic. I was like, this is fucking amazing. But the beta came out. I was unfortunately traveling, so I didn't get a chance to play it. But since then, I've watched a lot of content around it, and honestly, this looks like my style of game. I really love the dungeon crawler aspect of it. I love the build diversity that it appears to be able to maintain. Uh-huh. And I've actually never really played at, like, I've never really fully gotten into, like, an explicit Blizzard title.
Never even Overwatch when it first came out?
I've never played Overwatch.
Ever?
I've never even loaded up one game.
Huh.
I know, isn't that crazy?
That's pretty crazy.
I know. I think I got so burnt out from, like, the League style of games where it was just...
you didn't play WoW?
I have less than 10 hours playtime on WoW. So I played a little bit of Hearthstone. Like, I've never really gotten really into a Blizzard style game. And I feel like I really might give this game a serious shot. I'm excited for it. I know you played it, so I want to hear your thoughts. But from what I saw, like, the combat looks so damn fun.
Yeah, I mean, I played the beta. I didn't reach level 25. I got pretty close. So 25 was the max level you could get to. I think the closest I got was like 16 or 17 on one of my characters. But I do definitely think it's right up your alley because it has a lot of build diversity. And I know there were certain issues that people had with the build diversity, but as somebody who doesn't usually play those type of games, I felt like it was the perfect balance of not too overwhelming of amount of skills and abilities to choose from and not too guided. I felt like I still had a choice, and I hope they keep this. I don't know if they will, but it was in the beginning stages of the game, it's free to respec.
Oh, that's cool.
And then the more you level up, it's not that expensive. I hope it stays that way because I like that because I would choose, you get like one basic attack, right? And there you have 4 options basically. And so I would choose one and then I would be like, oh, let me try this other one. And I could just easily switch to it. So
there is a cost, like, even late game to respec and change things up?
Yes, because as I started to get up in level, I think I'm going to just go based off memory, but I think like when I was level 13, it cost like a couple thousand gold. But by that point I had like 20,000 gold.
I was going to say, does it hit a point where, yeah, there's a cost and it's just a gold sink to keep the economy like normalized? It's just one of the ways that they can keep a tap on it. And it becomes inconsequential when you get to the higher levels.
And I hope it stays that way, is to where it's like, because how it was leveled from my perspective playing it is it wasn't, it didn't feel like it was costly. And as I leveled up, it didn't feel like it was more costly. It felt like it just kept pace with how much gold I was getting from killing enemies.
Yeah.
And so I think I was fine there. And I hope they don't change that because I think that's what you need in a game like this is the ability to respec, especially with all the different abilities you have. It's crazy.
And there's like an open market or like a trading post, right, where you can buy and sell items in the game.
They didn't have it available in the beta, I don't think.
In previous Diablo games, they've done that, right? So I wonder if it might be on release. But because I remember playing Guild Wars 1 like back in 2006 and hearing that that Diablo, I don't remember if it was 2006, but it was a long fucking time ago. Diablo had this like open market where you could buy and sell things with like other players. I'm like, oh my god, I don't have to stand in a city and spam. And
Yep.
I just remember thinking like that was so cool. So what is I've watched a lot of like the combat. And I've seen people's takes on what they think of the game itself. What I know it's not like a traditional MMO, right? It's not going to have that style, but it is an online game where it looks like you get into like instanced combat with maybe a small group of people and you go through different things.
So the easiest way I can compare it, and it's not that good of a comparison, but in Destiny, those public events, that.
Okay.
So there's a public area, you're traveling around, you can see other people, they can see you, there's monsters, and then sometimes you'll get a notification on your map saying there's an event right here. You go there. The difference is like Destiny, it's a timer and it starts automatically. It doesn't start until somebody starts it, but then if it starts, you can go and you can help them out and then you get loot. And there's like certain requirements to meet in order to get more loot versus like, for example, there's one where there's these little characters, civilians that you need to save and defeat a horde of enemies. If the civilians die and you defeat the horde of enemies, you still get loot, but it's not as good as if you were able to keep them alive.
Okay.
And then the town had more people. So I bet it's some type of server magic there, but I felt like there was less people out roaming out in the wilds, but there was a lot more density in the town.
And there's fast travel, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and you need to unlock it by going, you walk there first and then you unlock it. And then you do get mounts.
Yeah. See, that's like your traditional Blizzard level polish where they're going to have all that stuff that makes the game feel so like such a good quality of life to be able to jump in and play.
And I didn't try it out myself just because I usually like to solo play unless I'm with my friends. But I bet in like the town you could probably join up with somebody as like a simple, request or something like that in like a party type system.
Yeah. And then follow them around and
yeah.
I'm sure they also have some kind of instanced combat or
well, the
like
dungeons
that.
when you go in there,
they do
instanced.
have dungeons, yeah. Explicit dungeons where you can go in and
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you have any issues on the beta like of disconnecting and stuff?
Not myself, no. But I heard a lot of those was for the early access beta.
Yeah, I still think. We're still a ways off for them to get that stuff polished. But from what I saw, the combat felt really, really rewarding and a lot of fun. And I'm excited to like really. I think this is the game that I'm gonna like really make an effort to get into.
Well, and so from the gameplay, the thing that made me the most excited was to see more of was the loot. So I can say the beginning game is a little bit boring. Not like the combat itself is boring. Because later you start to unlock legendary gear and like higher tier, and those have buffs or certain like characteristics to them, and that made it so much more fun. I only really got really good gear with my barbarian. I got a ring that gave him life, basically life. It was life on kill, and then he also had 2 rings that did that. Plus, I think it was like a sword, and so I felt fucking
Like a god.
Like a god. I would go stand in the middle of enemies and just
Yeah, this game definitely is going to have some kind of gear progression system.
But I would say the beginning is kind of it's made so you get used to your character, but it's kind of boring in an aspect of you aren't going to be able to see the full capability of your character until probably level 25 as you're like, "Oh, this is my build."
What is the max level? Do we know? 80?
I didn't see. Yeah.
I don't know either. Yeah, I feel it's gonna be. I've been looking for a game to really jump back into, and I've been dabbling with getting back into Guild Wars 2, and that game is just so easy to play casually though, like and jump in and do what you want to do. And I really only have one goal left in that game, which I'll accomplish this week of getting legendary armor, a full set of legendary armor. But I think this is going to be a game, and I might even buy the deluxe version because I heard it gives you like a 4-day head start, and you could play over the weekend instead of coming out on like a Wednesday or something like that.
Weird,
which is weird, yeah. And I've seen a lot of complaints from people around this whole like, people it's pay to win, they're getting 4-day head start. That's not fair. I think it is and of course it goes to Blizzard, which is like a monolith in the gaming world, but it's such an easy way to collect money, right, from your audience, because you don't have to program or create anything. All you're doing is allowing access to the game a few days earlier.
Yeah, and I mean it's mainly a single player game. It's not. I don't think there's PvP. Not that I've heard of.
I think there definitely is going to be some level of PvP.
Do you know? Well, oh yeah, it's like an arena type.
Yeah, I would absolutely wager that, and it's going to be based on what gear you collect. Like, it won't be balanced. It'll be whatever gear your character has. Which that's how World of Warcraft is too. Like the gear that you gain from raids and stuff apply to your PvP character, and so to be the best PvP, you have to you have to be great in multiple areas in that game, which is kind of interesting, but it ends up in this treadmill that I typically just don't really care for.
Yeah. One thing I also wanted to add about the builds and the classes. So a lot of the complaints were that Druid and Ranger, no, what was the name of it? Rogue were weaker builds, and I think a lot of that is due to some weird restriction they had. They restricted us to only one location for the beta, and for your class, once you get to, I think, level 15 for some, or all the characters, you get a class-specific quest that unlocks like this special ability for your class. The Rogue and the Druid were locked out of that, so they couldn't do
showcase that.
Yeah, but like for example, the Barbarian, by his special ability was by using certain weapons repeatedly, I could level them, my expertise in those weapons. So like if I mainly used hammers, if I kept using them, I would get better at using hammers. And just like,
so your modifier to your damage would go up over time if you use
for
more
hammer. Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of interesting.
So that was specific to the Barbarian. Like the Druid, I didn't get to see exactly what it is, but you get like aspects of certain animals you can apply to yourself. So like you could probably do like a bear aspect and it makes you stronger, or something like that. So I'm interested to see how if those change the opinion on the Rogue and the Druid.
What class do you think you're going to go as on release? Because you're definitely playing this game at release.
And what's cool is all my characters are created carry over.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Any progress you made in the beta, they said carries over. I'm probably going to try and continue on my Rogue, because he was the one that I started to... Him and the Barbarian were the one I started to invest into more than the others. My first one was actually Druid, and I had fun with him, but I eventually changed over to them, and I was like, oh, I like them.
Yeah, I think Rogue probably definitely fits your play style anyway.
Well, I like the bow, and it becomes like a machine gun.
Oh, really? So it's like a short bow style. It's not, yeah.
But then you can get like abilities to use like a piercing shot or whatever. And what's fun is it kind of reminds me of like D&D.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is like with the skills, like, are they, having played them, like, do you feel like there's like an optimal rotation? Because I noticed there wasn't like a bunch of like global cooldowns and some random shit that like a lot of other like World of Warcraft has and stuff. Like each skill had its own like cooldown and timer and stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. So like did you feel like the skills themselves were difficult to learn and kind of play out like an optimized like way to rotate around the build? Like you had crowd control, or did you feel like you were just button smashing?
I feel like you definitely need to work with your class to figure out a good combo, because there's stuff built for all, crowd control and like damage. And that was one of the more complex parts of the beta for me, was trying to figure out with the rogue how I wanted him to go into a fight. Because like you can, with the rogue, there's the option of either you use the blades, 2 daggers, or you use the bow as your basic attack. And then from there you get your special attack, and then you get another special attack, and then you get like a buff almost. And so to me that was the most complex part. I think eventually maybe there'll be like a meta of what you want to build, but I think going into it, I think there's plenty of different options and diverse options that you can pretty much play however you want your build to be and still be able to go pretty far. Cuz like there's 4 basic attacks for each class, and each 4 of those basic attacks have modifiers that drastically, some not so much. I'm kind of upset that they aren't as drastic as certain ones. Like for the druid, for example, there's werewolf basic attack, right? One of the modifiers is it does poison damage. And then you look at like the rogue, and it's like the modifier is it does 3% more critical damage. It's like
So what about like weapon types? How do those play into your build? Like if you have your basic attack, do those change with each weapon?
So that's kind of, it depends on your class.
Okay.
With barbarian is the only one I think from what I saw that it really does change how your character like does damage and attacks, versus like the druid, for example. He has this thing called like a totem, and he carries that around, and then he has a staff. And if you don't use any earth magic, the totem you don't use at all, but it still counts towards your DPS.
Really?
So you'll change your totem up, but he's not using it. He just carries it around.
It's like a passive damage.
Yeah. And so it's just, I think that's funny, is like certain things your character won't use. Like for example, the druid, when he changes into a werewolf, he scratches him, but he has like a magic staff and a totem, but he just changes into a werewolf to attack him. So certain characters it doesn't matter, but for other ones it does.
Well, that seems strange. That like a bear holding a staff.
Yeah. Well, they just disappear.
Oh, but the animations are the same, or
no? So the druid will change into a bear and swipe with the paw, and then it'll change back to the human, and the human's holding the staff and the totem.
So how do you think you're gonna play this game? Are you gonna go like full sweat and try to get like super proficient at like doing the best damage? Or are you gonna be like super narrative driven?
The story was interesting, but I was definitely more having fun with the combat.
Yeah.
I mean, like I enjoyed the story, but I found myself paying more attention to the combat and how I felt in the combat. Because the barbarian was the only class I was able to reach a part where I felt like I had good class cohesion going on in my abilities. Versus the other classes, I felt like I was still trying to work it out.
Yeah. So like, what do you see? What do you envision as the end game content? Like, I'm sure they'll probably have some form of raids. Obviously, they have dungeons. Like, is there a guild system? Did you see that?
I didn't see it, but I'm sure there is.
There has to be, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's gonna be like, because oh man, I just can't wait.
Well,
to
so
play
there's
this
world
game.
tiers. So I'm sure end game.
So there has to be
world tier 5 or whatever.
So then what is there, like a server type PvP mode? What do you mean, like where your server plays another?
No, so like a world tier. I'm sure Guild Wars has this. You've told me about it. It's where like the enemies are stronger. You earn better loot.
Oh, okay.
You earn more experience, and it's basically a difficulty system built into the
game. For
like
the dungeons, you can go to like you can turn on like a challenge mode or
whatever.
And,
So and it affects the whole game. So like I was on we only had access to 2 world tiers. I think it was either 0 or 1, and then 2, or 1 or 2. And so I played on 1, and I felt so much. But I started on 0 because it's like, this is the experience for new Diablo players. I played, I was like, this is pretty easy. And then I moved it up. I was like, okay, this is still manageable.
I'm an experienced gamer.
And you get a lot more experience by moving up to that. Like I was before.
Experience what? Like from killing enemies?
Yeah.
Or from, okay. So you can take your existing character and move it from world to world?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's
You can move
cool.
up world tiers.
Okay.
So like
you're not locked out of content like from your friends with that character. You don't have to like start from scratch.
Yeah, no, you
That's
can
sick.
move whatever. Like I would just go to the town and there's this fountain. After you start the game, you have to go to this fountain to change world tiers. And when you change it, it's done. And then you earn more experience. The enemies have more health, they do more damage. And like I said, the experience gain was big enough for me to notice that it is actually worth it to play on those higher world tiers if you want to. Because by the same time it took me to get to like level 6 or 7 as a character, I was already at like level 11 on world tier 1. And it wasn't hard. It was just, I had to think a little bit more about what I was doing.
I wonder if you'll be able to. Yeah, I wonder if you have to, if you just like live swap dungeon difficulty, like outside the dungeon, so you don't have to maybe like go to the fountain, swap your world level, and then go back to the dungeon. Like you could just play it at each level to gain the best loot.
You might be able to, but I also do know that the cool thing about their fast travel system, when you jump back to, the main town, it leaves behind a portal. You can go right back to where you left.
Oh.
So if I don't know if this will help me
sell something, whatever, you can go right back to
in the middle of a dungeon. You could do that, and you could go right back to where you were in the dungeon.
That's some quality of life right there.
So I'm not sure if they'll just have us do that, or if they'll have like the ability to change the dungeon levels. Because I did some dungeons, I didn't see an ability to change the difficulty like when I went into it. It was pretty much I just walked in and boom, I was doing the dungeon. So you might have to go to the fountain, but I'm not sure.
It'll be interesting to see how they incentivize rewards too. Like if you could just grind out the same dungeon and achieve like, are they daily rewards, weekly rewards? Like how that's going to work? Or do you get daily rewards per dungeon level? So like everyone's going to do the same one like 5 times every day to, on each difficulty level or whatever to.
It'll be really interesting to see. Cause I think the dungeons I did were very low level and very beginner dungeons. They weren't. I'm sure it gets really, really complex.
Was there a crafting system?
Yes.
So, and that's how you
you can upgrade.
Yeah, the upgrade system seems super interesting to me and how it functions in this game. Where you like, isn't it where you combine like 2 of the same pieces and then it spins up like the next tier for that weapon?
So I didn't test it out at all. Unfortunately, I didn't get to that level where I wanted to. Like I felt like I was always getting better loot rather than trying to carry something up with me. Okay. Probably with my barbarian and the stuff I was getting towards the end, I would have carried that up. But otherwise, I didn't get to test that out.
Damn. Yeah. No, I feel like it's. I don't know. I'm really. I think I've been looking for a game, like I said, to really dive into head first. And my wife made me buy The Last of Us, and I'm not really interested in playing that, but I'm going to have to at some point here with her. Because I've already done. I'm not a big I'm not a big fan of like replaying, especially narrative based games. I got it once. That's it. Checked it off. But I want to get into something that I can get really grindy on. And my old guild that I used to raid with in Guild Wars 2, in our Discord, they've been like some of the older some of the old guys we used to play with have kind of come back to the Discord and been talking about Diablo 4.
Ooh.
And they're no-lifers, all sweat, all gas, no break. Like, these guys don't fuck around. They're, like, finding all the optimal builds and shit. They're already theory crafting, creating spreadsheets, like, all the shit that I get into. And so, like, we're going back and forth and, like, talking about, like, what classes are going to be, probably optimal and stuff. So it's interesting to have that. Like, that's probably much more how I'm going to play the game. It depends on how much I really, really get into it. I think, it's hard to, as long as there's content to be consumed for me and I'm enjoying that combat system, I could get into this game. But if those things fail, and it might flutter for me. But from everything I've seen and heard, I think it's going to be at least 150, 200 hour game for me, minimum.
Yeah,
for sure.
It seems right up your alley as far as the combat goes, and it's minimal story. The story's there if you want to focus on it, but otherwise, it's just killing mobs of enemies.
Big numbers, much action, good times,
and loot. Don't forget the loot.
See, and that's something that Guildwars doesn't do a good job. Their loot system sucks ass, and very few things feel rewarding to do. Because it mostly comes in the form of materials, which you unlock like auto loot and other things, and then there's like a deposit all materials button that you can hit, and so like most of the stuff you collect just goes to your bank, and you don't really you could do a whole bunch of stuff, and you don't like, what did I just gain, and it's not obvious to you. So I'm excited to jump into a game that like where loot feels rewarding, like Elden Ring, right? And so like I'll grind this game, and then Elden Ring DLC will be coming out. It's gonna be a good year.
Perfect timing for it. And then I do hope. I think the loot's gonna be good from what I've seen, especially the higher tier, as far as how it changes your play style.
And you can only get loot for your class, right?
Yeah. Weirdly, no.
Or no. Okay, so
but rare.
I like that because sometimes you do have like multiple characters that you want to gear, or you can, if there's a marketplace, you could sell it, right? I like that.
I would say it's really, really, really rare though to get anything that isn't your class. Most of the time, it's just a mission specific reward. That's obviously it's like a dagger, but you're a barbarian. But otherwise, I have gotten I think I got a boot once for another class, but otherwise it's most of my playthrough was just loot for my character.
Is loot specific? Is armor specific to your class or armor type, like heavy, light, medium?
Your class.
Really? So rogues have rogue gear. So that's gonna be unique for armor, for style.
It's probably the same. From a programming aspect, it's just the physical look that's different, because now thinking on it, they are named the same thing in the beginning levels. It's like, this is the drifter's boots or whatever. But they look different on each character, but there are, in the beginning, there's...
So they negate the same amount of damage, whether you're a barbarian or...
Yeah, it doesn't say anything because it's specific to its item when it comes to RNG.
Okay.
Transmog is something I want to shout out. I know you're not big into that, but
fashion.
You can once you get an armor, boom, you got transmog for it.
God dang.
Instantly. You could go to the town, level 2 if you want, and change your character.
I'm telling you, I think I put that on Guild Wars 2 really pushing the this market, and Blizzard, and it pays very close attention to what Arena it does, because they have one of their leading competitors is their wardrobe system. Guild Wars 2, back in fucking 2013, 2014, came out with a whole wardrobe system where when you unlocked a skin, it was permanently unlocked for your entire account, and you unlock these transmutation charges through various events and stuff like that you could then transmog anything to look like that at any time.
Oh, wow.
And then that skin was permanently unlocked for your account. And so, there's thousands of fucking skins in that game. So as long as you unlocked it once, then it was account bound. So you couldn't, go and sell it. So you couldn't just, collect it, unlock it, and then sell it. And their wardrobe system, to this day, of all the games I've ever played, it's second to none. It's so fucking well done.
So the way it worked in Diablo was, in this one, was you got the item and then you had to dismantle it at the armorer, and then you had it unlocked, and you didn't have to spend anything to change the look. You could just go to your wardrobe, change the look of your armor, and then you were done. It didn't cost money or anything.
So if you were to change it off of that, would you have to then find that item again to dismantle it? Or
no. Once you dismantle it, you unlock it forever.
Oh, great. I love that.
But you have to at least dismantle it once.
Love it. Such a great I love that quality of life
And
because
you get so much
players
loot.
want to look a certain way, but they also want to use the best stats.
Yeah.
So like, nobody benefits in a situation where you force them to wear that outfit to like have the best functionality. Let them look the way they want to look. Gives the players so much more freedom.
I want to talk about real quick. We're gonna go on a side
Let's
tangent
do
to
it.
Destiny's.
Let's do it, baby.
Destiny's transmog system fucking sucks.
Dude.
It fucking sucks. They've designed it. I mean, props to them. They designed it for profit. That's how you make money off of it.
So you have to buy that. What is the item called?
The strand, or it's the silk weave.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's basically okay, you can unlock these weaves by doing these really fucking grindy, difficult missions.
You get like one a week.
Bounties, yeah. Or if you pay money, you can get 10 of them.
10 for $10.
Yeah, and it's like
I hate that.
I hate it.
See, and that's where that's what I talked about a couple episodes ago, is where they create an incentive for inefficiencies within their game to get you to buy that stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like they design that system
To make you spend money.
To make you spend money, and then the incentive is like, hey, they're cash shop. And I hate that because it comes at the sacrifice of the players.
Yeah.
I get why they do it to make money, but it's annoying, man.
And it's, yeah, like I said, props to them for coming up with, it works, obviously, and it's a smart decision from a business perspective, but I hate it. It's not good for games, in my opinion.
I would rather them generate money on, like, I don't know, maybe that is the only way, like, especially for Destiny, right?
Yeah, well,
you want to use those skins, you have to.
I would rather in Destiny, the way, instead of having loot base that you get out in the world that needs to be unlocked, I would spend money if you give me a cool cosmetic that I can only buy in the store and it's not like loot tied to loot of me getting out in the world. Yeah, I'll spend money on that. Rather than having...
Yeah, give me cash shop like skins.
Yeah, then like
Exclusive.
special exclusive skins that you have to pay money for. You can't get them anywhere else. Versus this, I'm just paying to use something that I could already use just on different armor.
Yeah.
So.
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
I feel like you said, I get why they do it. It makes, like, I get why they do it from a business sense, but it comes at the detriment of player efficiency. Yeah. Especially doing the grindy things, and no thank you.
Yeah. Well, moving on from Diablo 4, we're going to talk about
Comes out in June, right?
June, yes.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about three more video games, actually.
Hell yeah.
First, I wanted to touch on Resident Evil 4. It just came out. I played it. I haven't beat it yet. This is my first time playing it. A lot of fun. I'd recommend it for anyone. I would even say if you don't like horror games, this might be an okay one for you because it's almost
It's more thriller than horror.
It's almost more B action movie.
Really?
Yeah, and it's funny because I went into it. I was expecting like Resident Evil 2, which is a good horror game, and it's like and thriller horror game. And I remember I was playing 4, and I went into it with that perspective, and I was like, this isn't that good. But then eventually I was like, oh, I get it. It's not that. And once I started to think of it like a B action movie, I had so much fun with it then. Because then you see all the cheesy stuff they do, and they just have fun with it. Like your character will say silly stuff, and it's like, you shouldn't say silly stuff. Like one of the most infamous scenes, and this is from the beginning, so it's not a spoiler. Your character Leon walks into this town, and these cops were escorting you. They get kidnapped. One is burnt alive on a cross, right? And you're fighting all these zombies. This bell tolls. They go into a church. They just stop fighting you. They walk in, and Leon's standing there. And he's looking around. He's like, where'd everybody go? Or where's everybody going to? Bingo. And then it goes Resident Evil 4.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Total B movie.
And so I would recommend it. And like I said, even if you don't like horror games, I think this might be an okay one for you because it's more actioned on action and just being kind of silly while also being entertaining.
That sounds like fun, man. Like, did you play the original game?
No, I never played the original 4.
So you don't have any reference to like how well it was adapted?
I've heard it's really good adaptation. They changed stuff where it needed to be, but also respected it. And I know a couple changes just from the gameplay that I've seen of the old game. Like for example, there's this little dude, his name's Ramon, and they changed his boss fight. Before it was even more silly. He was in like this giant robot, and now they change it to where he changes into a monster, and you have to fight him as a monster, and it makes more sense. But on your way to fight him, you have to climb up the robot that he used.
Really?
On your way to him, yeah. So I think they did a really good job respecting what came before, as well as like adapting it to nowadays market.
Yeah. I still default to I wish we were getting more original stuff, but
True, but Capcom, they've been knocking it out of the park with these Resident Evil remakes. I mean, and they look good too.
It sounds like they probably have a lot of fun with that too, because they do have some leeway.
Well, I think they're old enough that it warrants a remake versus Last of Us.
That's such a good point, actually. That's actually a very good point, right? Like where people there is a demand, like it makes sense for people to demand a refresh, right? To play it with 2023
Resident Evil 4
polish.
Came out originally on GameCube.
See, that's such a good point. Versus fucking Last of Us that's remade 5 times in 5 years.
Yeah. And so it's like, I think this one, as far as remakes goes, this one warrants a remake versus others, not so much, but I think this one would deserve it, especially with the update to it.
You think Nintendo ever goes back and just like refreshes all their old games? You know how much money they'd make from that, I feel like?
I mean, I feel like they already kind of had multiple times. I think like in some of the Mario games, they've brought back old games and kind of refreshed them.
I feel like they almost work better though in their original setting for what they are, because they just were so good.
Well, and I think it's not much you can innovate on.
Yeah, it's 2D scrollers,
Versus Resident Evil, that was one of the first like third-person like shooting games, and that medium of that or that category of game has evolved drastically since the GameCube. So now it's like, of course, an optimized version of that game. Probably what they wanted it to be when it first came out.
Have they ever done like Ocarina of Time, like a full remake for that? Or something like the old, like the OG, like Zelda games?
I think they did do a slight remake, but I don't think they've done a full one.
See, I'm so disconnected from like the
Yeah, see, they did a 3D
Unreal Engine 5 potentially. That seems
Really?
a little, I don't know if someone's just like asking for it or whatever, but who knows? But I feel like I don't even know if that works for Nintendo. Actually, there's such a, I don't know. I haven't touched I don't really have much say in Nintendo stuff. I just respect what they do and move on.
They got good
such
games.
a niche,
yeah.
And I haven't bought the last console of theirs I bought was the Wii. I didn't buy the Wii U. I didn't buy the Switch. Let's actually, can I divert? I know we have our list of topics, but are you like, okay. So Diablo 4 is a cross-platform game. You're probably going to pick it up for console, right? I'm assuming you're not going to play it on PC. My question is, if there was, like we have the Steam Deck, which is like handheld, like PC gaming type thing. Would you ever, if you saw like more and like better and better comparables to like the Switch, but you could play a Rolodex of games that are like all the PC games in the world, basically, on a handheld type gaming machine and then be able to emulate all the older games. Do you think you would ever get into something like that?
Yeah, I think if it was good enough to like, if there was one that was good enough that got me interested, then yeah.
Like the Steam Deck, like that was a pretty big jump, I think, from if like it was the first time. Now I know that they've ran into some criticisms as of late, and we don't need to get into that. But like it was pitched to be able to basically run the entire Steam library. Now fingers crossed in terms of like what your actual performance is, because at the end of the day, the handheld machine was running on Linux, and then they were porting all these like Windows exe files into Linux and basically running them, just like how Wine used to do. I think it was what it called back when I used to use Linux. They found a way to like make it even a better experience. So you're basically gaming on Linux, but you can play all like the old Windows games. And I feel like the Steam Deck was a big jump forward, because it was like, oh my God, I could play my entire library. I just log
PC
in, and I have all these games like in my hand.
Like, well, and I think the biggest part for me is unless it was like a Nintendo DS, I didn't really like handheld gaming. I liked the PSP, the Game Boy and all those, but like in the future now, I don't really like handheld gaming. So if they created like the Steam Deck, and then they had it where I had the ability to port it in like the Switch.
Yeah, like a docking. Well, they have a docking station.
They do?
Yeah, they definitely do. So you can dock it, and then you hook it up, and then you have a wireless controller of your choosing.
I would really be interested in that over a handheld, just because to me, I've never really been a handheld. After PSP ended, I kind of something switched in how I don't really like those.
I wonder how it handles like things like Discord or in-game chat. I never even thought about that for the Steam Deck.
I don't know.
Like,
PS5,
obviously you're just
though?
playing the game for, like if you would use the in-game comms, whatever. But like with the Steam Deck, it only comes with Steam. I think. I don't know if you could side load Discord or whatever.
PS5 though, the Discord integration, that's fucking nice.
Fucking phenomenal, right?
It's nice.
Is that what you and your friend have been using?
Yeah, we've been using for Destiny.
It immediately replaces any in-game voice comms, right?
I know.
Basically,
Just boom.
It's easy.
You do it from your phone.
Private party,
and it's hilarious. You don't even need to download the app on your PS5. It's already included. So you just pretty much log in on your phone, and it's like, all right, connecting now, and then you're in.
Here's your QR code. Yeah, they've really gotten better at that shit. No, it's fucking ridiculous it took that long.
I know.
It is absolutely ridiculous. But now that it's here, the past is the past. But like, Jesus Christ, man. Like, with all these games coming out cross-platform, guys, use a fucking cross-platform tool. Don't try to because now, like, games don't even have to necessarily offer, like, in-game comms.
No, there's so many options.
Yeah. I mean, they still, if they want, like, where you can shit talk back and forth, then you can still do
like
that.
The public lobby. Yeah.
But like, how much development time was wasted knowing that like people are gonna go to the side? Like, think about how long like party chat has existed for PlayStation, where most people just use that, right, and not even the in game. But that was only worked if you were in that ecosystem.
Yeah, we couldn't party chat with somebody on PC.
No, and then when we would talk, it was fucking like you guys are on your phone.
Yeah, I was on my phone.
And I'm hearing your TV audio, and it's just like, and then you have your headset one ear off to listen to me, and it's so clunky, man.
But now
it's all
pretty good.
Past. That's right. What's so funny is thinking of that. I don't know why that reminded me of like Wo Long, but I played that demo, and I haven't even thought about playing the game in any way. It's so funny, like. I feel like anecdotally, I was gonna really enjoy that combat system, and then when I got in there, I was like, "This is not for me."
Well, that's how I felt with Neo. It's the same thing. I look I know plenty of people love it, and I know it's a great combat mechanic, but just something about it looks very visually appealing, and then when you get into it, it just doesn't hook me.
No,
something about it, I'm like, okay,
and then like their whole like banner thing, like where it was like forced exploration to like then be able, because there was no levels in the game
to build
so you had like to get to on an even playing field of the boss, you had to like go and explore, and I don't know, it felt very linear very, very quickly. Anyway, that's a side tangent. But handheld and gaming, like the reason why I bring it up is because I saw Steam Deck sort of set the tone for from a price point perspective, like
Mm-hmm.
you could get a Steam Deck for like $400, which is crazy to think about, like the hardware that it had in the time and when it came out, like because hardware was so fucking expensive at the time. To now where we're seeing like competitors. I just watched a video from Linus Tech Tips talking about like a prototype from like Asus, and they've got like screens that are the thing that makes Steam Deck like so efficient is the screen is only 720p, but it's because it's so small, like you don't
It
even
doesn't
notice.
matter.
But this thing has like a 1080p screen, and like it runs at like 15 watts, so like it can, but like has so much power efficiency and performance efficiency that like you could still run games at like 120 frames a second or something like that, and it has 120 frames hertz display. And then what's really cool is it has this like unique connector where you can plug in like an external GPU to it, like a graphics card, and so you basically use that for your library, for your Steam Deck, like for your Steam library. You plug that into it, and you basically have like this like a desktop level graphics card associated with it, and then it docks into your TV, and you can play games like that.
Wow.
And so it's like that's with the external graphics card, your price jumps dramatically, but it's like wow, you can take handheld gaming to like the console style. I'm sitting in my living room on
Yeah.
my couch, with a controller. You can go to that pretty quickly, if you had the money. And it's like we're getting closer and closer to, because what we're like, I don't know, it's weird. I could talk about this subject all day long because I love computer hardware. I just do. I love to see like the performance enhancements. And I've talked about like this dual problem, and maybe I fundamentally misunderstand the problem. And I've tried to bring this up to other people, and they always shit on me for like one reason or another. But this is sort of where I'm at. Like, and I'd love to have a dialogue about this. But 4K gaming, it's barely becoming a thing right now. Basically, it was sort of gimmicky before because you could really only eke out like maybe 60 to 80 frames on like newer titles and stuff like that. But we finally have caught up to where like the RTX 4090 can do like north of 120 frames on like the most modern of titles. And that's great because once you hit like, it seems like 120, 144 hertz, like refresh rate screens and stuff, that seems to be the sweet spot for gaming. Anything above that generally has just like diminishing returns. Unless when you're doing like test specific things, like, or if you're trying to fucking be the number one player in CSGO, where you need like fucking 300, like all those guys use like 240, 360 refresh screens because the game has gotten that, people have gotten that good at that game. It's ridiculous. We're going to talk about CSGO in a minute, but I've talked about this problem in gaming where, so the jump from 1080p to 4K is like 4 times the resolution. And then the jump from 4K to 8K is 4 times the resolution. When you double the resolution or like the number of pixels, because 4K, like 1080 is, so it's 1920 by 1080. 1080 is the second number. When we say 4K, it's actually like 4,000 is the first number, and then it's like 22,000 something the second number. So like, it sounds like it's really 4 times. No. They flipped they changed. It's a marketing gimmick, but excuse me. It's 4 times the resolution each time. But I feel like we've hit a sweet spot with 4K gaming where even at like 1.5 or 2 feet away from your screen, it's indistinguishable. The human eye cannot really pick out a single pixel. The pixels are so dense. Like if you're that close. Now, if you're looking at a 100-inch display, that's a different story. But like if you're gaming on like a 20, like let's say a 30-inch monitor, 34-inch monitor, your eyes are not going to be able to perceive, because the pixel density is so low. You're not going to be able to perceive that. So while the level of detail will go up, obviously, from 4K to 8K because they can show more information, like I don't know from like a resolution standpoint if the push is going to be like how it was. Like I remember when it was 720, everything was, it was like, let's get to 1080. Let's get to 1080. And we got to 1080. It was like, get to 1440. Get to 1440. And then it was like, oh, 4K is like now this. I don't know if that same motivation is going to be for getting to 8K. And for the reasons why I just talked about, like it's going to be imperceivable at some point. And we're hitting such a point of diminishing returns, again, where we have to have 4 times the processing power to achieve the difference between 4K and 8K. I don't know if that results in
being worth it. Yeah.
Right. And so if you take that barrier to entry away from games, where you're not trying to fight this graphical performance from a game creation standpoint, from games just looking better and the resolution also stepping up over time, right? Because we've been always trying to make better, clearer games that look better, but we've also tried to increase the how many pixels we're looking at. If you take away one of those pillars, now you're just facing it on one front. My question is, do we see like a marginal increase in how these games are designed and ran and built? Because we're not dealing with pixel count anymore. And that's going to stay at 4K. Now we can just go with, let's get higher and higher and higher detailed art assets in our games and allow these cards to run. That's like an interesting thought experiment for me to sort of have. And I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but I feel like, yeah, absolutely. I feel like we're going to see a lot more detail being put in, because that race, one of the whole legs of the race is basically put on slow mode. And now we can just have, oh my God, like we have no loading zones, let's say, or we have infinite look distance, right? Because we just have so much GPU memory or something. Like I could see those things getting really seeing marginal movements, unlike that we have in the past, to just move forward. Like, okay, well, we have to kind of keep playing in this box because we have to be able to crunch out more pixels. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I would agree with you. I think it'll definitely help out the other leg, as he said, to develop a lot more. I mean, what I was thinking of the whole time you were saying that is like, you could almost compare it to movies and the camera, right? We've reached kind of a point in cinema or films where the camera, we have IMAX, which is like, the best, and then digital, and we're not really striving for more. Now it's more about how creative we can get with what we have.
How big can the CGI get, right?
Yeah, how the CGI can get, or even like animation. I love this. Like, you can see older animations had to get very inventive because of limitations. And then now you can see, because for a while there it was just, we're going to make the best looking thing, the most recent, newest looking animation. Now they're actually kind of going, oh, well, what can we do more creative with it to make it more expressive? Best example I have of that is the new Puss in Boots movie. Way different than any of the other Shreks. Different art style. The way they did the animation, totally different. And I loved it. It's coming from my parents. They watched it. They thought it looked old. And I was like,
really?
Yeah, they're like, the animation style looked weird and old. And I was like, well, that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Is they aren't trying to push the staple anymore. They're trying to get creative and just express an artistic side. And I hope and I think we're going to see a very similar thing in gaming, where it gets more creative with what we got. Because you can only go so realistic looking
to where it's just diminishing returns.
Yeah. And so now, you'll
look at the reflections on the water.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it has that. How often am I looking at the water?
And with like lumens now in Unreal Engine 5, I mean, those are, can you get better than that? Probably eventually, but that's like pretty darn good. And so I think we'll start to see a lot more cool, interesting appliances of the tools we already know, and some more innovation on that side.
So that's a fantastic counterpoint to what I was just talking about. Like, film is really interesting because this sort of happened not from a resolution perspective, but like from an FPS perspective. Because don't we still, like, if you go to a movie theater, don't we still watch movies in 24 frames? Like, isn't that still the standard?
I think, yeah.
Right? Cinema like plays at that, and it's for like that cinematic movie experience, which I don't really understand. I think it'd be really cool to see a movie at 120 frames. I don't know what that would look like or if it would ruin it. But that's a super good point. Like, that part of the race ended, and so you're right. Like, cameras have definitely hit a point of diminishing returns, right? Like, it's more of how do you manage the settings and the software side of capturing the right light and making sure you're restricting certain things, because these lenses and the camera themselves, they're going to pick up whatever the hell you want it to pick up. So now it's just how creative can we get? And then, on the software side, what are we going to actually, start to play with and dabble? That's an interesting point.
Well, like, you look at James Cameron, he does insane stuff with his cameras. Like, Avatar is insanely complex.
I swear it's just a marketing ploy for his company.
It probably is. But yeah, so I mean, that he's working with the same cameras they've had for years. And I mean, of course they're top of the line because he's James Cameron, but it's not like it's a hugely innovative, like frame per second camera. No, it's just how he's using it.
Well, yeah, and then like we've hit a point too where like some people actually prefer the old style cameras, right? Because they give a certain look.
They have a different feel. They have a different look. I mean, and tying it back to video games with that, a lot of days, you hear people saying, "Oh, those old games used to look like shit." It's like, well, okay, put it in perspective of you playing it on a TV,
right?
An old CRT TV. It didn't look that bad. It's because you have the resolution now to see like
it exposes
under the skin. Yeah.
Have you ever seen that comparison of like the same game on a digital display versus a CRT?
It looks horrible.
It's so much fucking different. It's actually crazy to see the animation change.
Like even 8-bit games.
That's what that's what I'm talking about. Like, it's like you look at the CRT and it looks way higher resolution and it's not. But like the way that the CRT functioned, it was much smoother.
They designed it to work with the CRT to make it look a certain way. And then when you take that away, you're left with this thing and it's like, oh, that looks crappy. It's like, well, no.
Yeah, right? You've changed the equipment.
Yeah. You've changed how you view it. So, I mean, tying that back to the movie, that's what happens.
That's so crazy. Yeah, it is kind of wild. Like, what camera innovation is still going on today? Like, what company is even working on? Like, I remember growing up, Kodak was the thing, and there was so many different. But like, what company is dedicated to like cameras? I'm sure, like at the enterprise, like cinematic level, there's obviously companies dedicated to doing that. But like, who's doing the innovation, or have we just hit? Or is it really like smartphone manufacturers like trying to get? I mean, basically, the whole back of my phone at this point is like a lens.
Yeah.
And I have like all these different lenses, but I mean, you see these commercials that they put out for Apple, like where you can film like cinematic level experiences.
And it looks good.
It looks amazing. It's got stabilization built in. It's like, it's ridiculous that that's just sitting in your pocket at any given time, and you're basically using it to text or whatever. As simple as that sounds, but. I mean, where I don't know, I don't know where the innovation's coming from in that whole field. So
only thing I could think is maybe integrating somehow CGI into it better. So I don't even know if you could do that though. This is from like completely layman's, like.
Well, you know what's interesting? So like I'll talk about that. So with graphics cards, they do have like purpose-built cores for certain things. So, like, one of the big changes that we made probably in, like, the last 5-7 years is mainly CPUs, but some GPUs have them as well. Well, they have performance cores, which will do all your heavy lifting stuff. And then they have efficiency cores, which don't operate at the same frequencies, but they're incredibly efficient. So when you're doing like just word processor or browsing the web and stuff like that, you don't need, the shit that you would need to, format a movie or like render a movie or fucking, play a game. So you're going to be on that low efficiency, so you're drawing less power and stuff like that. But then it turbos up and it cranks and turns on those performance cores and shifts the load into those. And so they've gotten a lot smarter at like handling load on the appropriate cores. Now, same thing with graphics cards. I think one of the things that there's certain editions of GPUs from NVIDIA specifically that have like these performance cores, but they have this additional core dedicated for AI stuff.
Oh.
Like the architecture is designed for AI workloads. And so like labs and stuff like that, they buy those types of GPUs to have that specific architecture in there for that stuff. It handles it way more efficiently, just the way the code is executed. So that is kind of like, are we ever going to see like purpose-built, like, hell, if Unreal Engine 5 keeps its dominance, like, are we going to see like Unreal Engine performance cores, like in our thing where it's just like, it knows how the game engine is going to serve up its code to and maybe that's what drivers are for, but I don't know. It is an interesting topic to talk about because that's where we've seen, I don't think like Moore's Law, I think Moore's Law is slowly breaking down in terms of computer enhancements, but what we've gotten better at is shifting workload, getting smarter about our workload, and then efficiency gains are huge. Like I was just talking about with this new handheld thing that I was watching from LTT, like the ability to play modern games at 15 watts, that's fucking crazy, dude. That's crazy to even think about. And like, so it's not even getting hot in your hand. So it doesn't need like over turbo like fans. So it's not louder. And then when you turbo fans, guess what? You're drawing more power, which then creating more heat. And so like it all helps itself. And one of the things that I've learned about electronics is the hotter electronics get, the less efficient they become, which is interesting. So they bottleneck themselves and then they get hotter. And that's why like modern CPUs, like they'll boost up and down constantly depending on if they can handle the heat or not. But like that's where the gains have been, is like getting flexible in that stuff versus just having, okay, here's a gaming CPU. It's gonna be fucking ripping 100% of the time, 100%.
Overheat,
yeah,
exactly. Burnout.
Yeah, it's the only way you can have laptops these modern days that can do the flexible workloads, but then still have 6-hour battery life.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I feel like I don't know. I feel like we're probably 2 generations away from like a mid-tier GPU, like really. So two generations would be roughly like 4 years, 4.5, 5 years. So like where a mid-tier GPU could probably handle 4K gaming, at like reasonable levels. I say that like I know what I'm talking about, but that was what I would guess. That's how long it took us to get, because it took like, Jesus, like 3 generations to get to 4K. They've been touting this since fucking forever ago. But yeah, I feel like once we hit that level where it's just normalized, I don't know where games are going to go. I hope they get better in terms of the content.
I'm sure they will. And I mean, we aren't even talking about if AI keeps developing and you introduce that into this whole mix, that changes the whole fucking game.
Like DLSS, or like, have you seen that set? Like DLSS in it itself, like it's fucking incredible. Like to see, now you can like, it can get gimmicky sometimes, but you can upscale shit so well and it like looks great.
It looks awesome.
And that's just that's not even it's
fake
performance. Yeah.
So, I mean, just imagine once AI, if it keeps developing, either we get taken over by robots or we'll be living in a utopia that's perfect.
What if game development gets to the point where it's like you ask the right questions to the AI to create your game? Like, I want to create an MMO that has roughly 10,000 hours of content. It's built around this gaming. Here's the classes.
That could be a potential.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
That's scary, but also cool.
playing like AI games. Oh my!
And I'm sure
God.
like we've seen the progress on how good it's getting at what just barely the
It's
infant
almost
side
light
of it.
speed.
Yeah, like at first it was like, okay, that does look weird. We saw Dolly and it couldn't do hands, and now you see pictures and you're like,
It's like this does not exist, and you're like, what?
yeah. And so imagine the speed. Like, of course, the games would suck at first, but once it starts to learn and it gets enough input, you could probably request like a AAA game, and it would give you a AAA game.
And then it understands like ChatGPT, like
Yeah.
that's what we're sort of dancing around. Like if you it understands context. So if you spat out a AAA level game in a game engine for you, and then you could go back and be like, I don't actually like this. Tweak this to this.
It can,
And it just does that for you. Like now all of a sudden I'm a developer without having to know any code. That's fucking crazy.
like, you could say, make it less grindy, and it's like, okay,
Yeah. Put in a system for dancing. Like I want all my characters to have like different, dance moves based on TikTok trends. And it just fucking goes in and puts like a dynamic system for this. Oh, this is buggy. Rework this. Oh,
that's crazy. And I mean,
it's gonna happen. We're I don't even think, Dylan, we're that far off.
no,
Because it's
How
already
fast?
we've talked about this work. So I work on a software development team,
Mm-hmm.
and we talked about this at work where like it's already doing a better job of like organizing code than what people could spend hours doing, and it does it instantaneously essentially, where it'll go in, it'll comment on your code, it'll say like what it each so it from a documentation standpoint, it's way cleaner, way more readable, and then it organizes the code as well. Like we've seen tools where it'll go in and it'll just make it way more readable, way more organized. Your code is like it's as if you worked at like Microsoft. I'm assuming what Microsoft looks like from the behind the scenes, because how complex their shit is, it has to be super clean. But excuse me, like we're already there from like it cleaning up code. So I've seen people on ChatGPT say, write me the code to play Pong, and it does it, and then they go and take that and throw it into a compiler, and it fucking works, and they play Pong. We're already there. If you just outline like the parameters of the game you want to create and the art, like imagine ChatGPT married with this like programming language side of it with the AI art. You throw all those in a bucket together. Oh my fucking good. ChatGPT basically writes all the code for your fucking, and then the other one organizes it, and so if you wanted a developer to go in and service it, they could. And then the AI art just generates all the art assets for the world building. And you could set up landscapes and stuff like that. Like, and then you, as your creative hat, you can go on in there and be like, ooh, this is a great start, right? Like the world is built. Now I can tweak it to really make my vision come through. Like I want a rainforest setting. Okay, great. It's going to generate you a basic rainforest setting. And then you go and populate it with what you want. Like, oh, I want crabs to be fluent walking through the river. Oh, I want certain trees to have Spanish moss on them and other ones not. Like that's where human capital can come in and really make it their own without having any of the hard skills of like that barrier to entry shit that discourages a lot of people from going into this type of field, right? They're like, oh, I love graphic design, but I don't want to have to like learn fucking Python or something.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, sometimes those do go hand in hand because you have to understand the limitations. So it's like, oh, I'm like really creative, but I'm not a technical person at all. Like my wife, right?
Then
boom, this is perfect for them because they can use natural language to get what they want, and then they can go and do what they do best, which is create. Dylan, we're in for a fucking
it's gonna be
dude.
wild, man.
What the fuck are people doing at that point? Like, could you imagine?
Well, yeah. Like at that point, what
are
we gonna have jobs? Like, what's the point of having jobs at that point? Well, I mean, obviously, certain things that AI can't do yet, but those job markets are gonna be like obsolete.
Like all the jobs are going to be like people testing and validating things to make sure like it works and functions the way that they see fit. And then you're going to have like truly like you're going to have like designer type people like in those roles. Like where I just see like the technical side of things like really falling off in the, because gaming in and of itself, like its end state is not fucking technical, right? It's all creative.
Yeah.
It's all creative. And so if you can unmarry those two things and let the super technical nerds like build the actual software, like this stuff to make it even better, and then you let the creative people do what they do best, and you disconnect those worlds, oh shit, dude! I think you're gonna see so many enhancements because there's so much lost when you have to deal with both back and forth.
Well,
that's literally my job.
Like what I'm imagining is like, imagine if Hideo Kojima, just had the ability, had the option, this AI, we would see some fucking weird shit, but also probably good shit.
Absolutely, dude.
And it's like, you know he's limited by the tech, because of crazy stuff that comes out of his brain. But
yeah,
him with no limitation.
Or imagine him like being able to like build his own model with the samples of like his crazy weird creations.
Yeah.
And then just sort of randomize this AI, like spit me out stuff that's similar to this but different in these ways, and he can kind of see them, and then iterate on it. See them, iterate on it. See them and iterate. Like, I think it's going to accelerate this whole process.
Do you think though it would become almost disingenuous, or it would feel samey?
Absolutely, because so here's the thing. It will, because it's all going to be using like the same model, which is built on a set of data that everyone's probably going to be leveraging the same data sets. But what in reality, what goes on to always, it's the things that distinguish themselves from the rest, right? Like, it would be very easy to go in there and have that samey experience, but I think where people are going to like specifically want to spend their money in the gaming industry they're going to follow like the Kojima, right? Where like they love his style, and so they want his fingerprint on all of his style of games, and so he's going to like then have to implement his tweaks, right? Like it'll go in and build the world for you. But really, like, what's going to make that like a Miyazaki style From Software game or whatever is his thumbprint on, what his vision is. And so lowering that barrier to entry of like removing the technical piece and allowing them to just create and have like a field day. Like, this is what I imagine like getting to is, let's get fucking meta for a minute here. Let's just get really fucking wild. All right, imagine it, and I don't know if this happens in our lifetime. It probably fucking does, which is even crazier to think. Like, you're sitting in your virtual office, right? You got your VR headset on, and you're in your virtual office, right? And you have all of these like AI models at your fingertips, right? And you have been tasked to sort of create a prototype for a game. And so like let's use the rainforest setting that I was talking about. Like, you want to have the first level in whatever game you're designing is a rainforest, and you're just trying to, right now you're not worried about the mechanics, you're just worried about world building. Imagine like a super creative type like Miyazaki or something is sitting down, and he asks it to generate like a rainforest landscape, and it does that in real time. And then he can go in and examine each piece within that and be like, let's tweak this tree to have denser bark. Okay, make the shadowing of this, more or less, and it's all done through like verbal communication,
and
it's making these changes live and adapting his area, and he just gets to spend his day in this playground of creating. Like, that to me, like, if you just say do this, then it's going to create variations of the same, where like you said, it's going to kind of feel hollowed out. But what people are going to fall into, and I really do believe this, is they're going to fall, like, it's like an author, right? Like, once people, like, all books come in the same format, right?
Yeah.
Like a paper book, they got words on the pages, whatever. But what you're buying the book for is how those words are oriented, right? The story that's in there. And I feel like that's what it's going to become, is like you're going to want to buy that person's experience.
Mm-hmm. So
that's hella meta.
Yeah, that part I totally on board with, and I can buy. My question for you, and I want to hear what you think. The aspect I'm coming from is just one of them, gameplay. I'm gonna use the example of God of War. They spent ages trying to perfect the new God of War combat, made sure it feel good, made sure it played good. Would we lose something with AI in that? Because the reason it's so good is because of the innovation and challenges they had to do to change the combat. Or would it be such a would they restrict AI more in that field because it requires a more personal touch? I don't know. What do you think there?
Well, like, so let's say they
Like,
really
because I
want to.
wouldn't want a game to I wouldn't want me playing God of War to feel like I'm playing another game.
Diablo.
Yeah, I wouldn't want the combat to feel the same.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how they would do something to get the AI to not.
I would actually say it's even more. I would imagine it would be even better, because imagine you have your entire creative team or your gameplay design team, whatever the name of that is, sitting in like this virtual room together live, right? Before it's like, well, we have to nail this fucking animation. We got to start there. Let's spend 2 weeks nailing the animation or whatever. Like, that's what it takes
And
now.
then it's not good.
Exactly. Now they can all live test that combat attack, or whatever, and all be adding their inputs and stuff and be like, ooh, wouldn't it be cool if we actually added this? Why don't you check out on that? And you can make those tweaks live, and you can all sort of participate in creating something.
Okay.
So I would actually imagine it would. I think it would even make that where people do. Like, I can only imagine how much love and care they put into that like combat system, because it's a goated title.
Yeah.
They need to make sure they nail it, right? But like, imagine if they had the tools available to them to where they could not only like the design team can design it, but like the technical side is there to support them, so that they can go, what about this? And then, oh no, that was a terrible idea. Let's go back to the way it was, revert, whatever.
Well, and then I guess they could even they would have access to the more technical side, saying, okay, let's increase the impact by 20%, and then they'd play and
add a camera shake when it lands.
And it's like,
yeah,
okay,
increase rumble to 30%. Like, so now that experience that the artist draws up, that they want the user to have, they have the ability to be the tester themselves and like build that, which they've never really. I know that a lot of companies, like the art people, are like very technical, and I don't think, like, I'm not saying like people don't need to be technical anymore, because the world is just continually moving, but like they can focus on the design side of the skills way more than being limited by this software or these tools.
You've seen concept art. You know how cool some of it
Oh
looks.
shit, yeah.
Imagine if we got that unlimited. Like, by the limitation of technology, they design something and we get to see it.
Yep.
You know how much they have to scrap in video games because it just doesn't fit development time?
Yep.
That would
shit. Like, they draw up the concept art, and then they're like, well, we're limited to this many polygons, so that's why we had to flatten this image and stuff like that. They could do all this stuff and make those changes and be like, render that down. Ooh, I don't like how that looks. Let's actually restyle that whole thing. They could do this on the fly.
Wow.
They don't have to sit there and have this back and forth iteration, because that's where, when you're building a game engine, like, because I follow the development of Guild Wars 2 closely, like, holy shit, dude. It takes years and hundreds of people right now. Look at how many game engines there are in the world. There's not that fucking many for an industry that's 70 billion plus.
Yeah.
You got like Unity for your mobile stuff. Like, there's a bunch of little mobile ones, but like, dude, it's like less than probably 20, like way less than 20 major game engines that probably make up well over 50% of the market.
Yeah. Wow. That's exciting, but also, man, development teams would be a lot smaller, I feel like. You go from development teams of like 500 to 1,000 people down to maybe a couple hundred, if that.
I feel like the gaming market will be super noisy if it gets to that level of ease to create and publish a game.
Well, there'd be so many games. Yeah,
I know, right? Like
at that point,
don't
it'd be
know
who
how
has
you
the
would track
money
it.
to pay
It's a
for the
market.
license of the AI, of a certain AI, or
that
marketing and
wow. I don't know. It's I think when I think about like that stuff, I think we're on a way there, and I wouldn't have said this 3 years ago. I really wouldn't.
No.
I wouldn't have thought. I definitely wouldn't have thought it was going to happen. But this fucking ChatGPT is blowing. I see shit about this every day. It blows my fucking mind.
Yeah, and like
every single day.
And how fast. Like at first when Dolly came out, I showed you guys, it was fun. It was like, oh, this is still gimmicky and in infancy. And now how fast we've seen it proceed to be like, oh shit. Like now there's certain countries are like talking about banning
it. Yep.
GPT, and it's like,
good luck.
Hold on a sec. What?
ChatGPT 4 like is I think came out, or like where you can submit images to it and it understands like what's going on in the image. And so like it's crazy. And then I listened to a podcast with one of the creators of ChatGPT, and they were talking about like how they didn't understand it fully, why it worked so well. Which is scary as fuck to even think about. It was like, we don't really understand why it works this well. Like, it's not obvious to us.
Wow. So they stumbled into.
Fuck yeah, dude.
That's almost perfect though. If you think about it, like from a movie aspect, they stumbled into this.
Right. Well, like, because I think GPT-2, it wasn't very good at like giving you a response that it's always that natural language response, right?
Yeah.
Of like making it readable, making it interesting, and organizing everything. And I think what they said they did was they got like thousands of people to like rank test responses from the model itself.
Yeah.
And say, this one's better than that one. This one's better than that one. And they did that for, thousands and thousands of hours, to where the model trained itself to like organize its responses in that fashion. And there's obvious problems with that, of course, because it limits it can try and formulate it in that style. But I mean, I thought AI like a couple years ago, I thought it was like, oh, we're nowhere near anything cool.
It'll be a couple hundred years.
The best AI was like Google Assistant.
Yeah, and it sucked.
And it was like, I never fucking used that for anything. It was such an annoyance. And now it's like, oh shit, this came out. Oh shit, it's got an update. Oh my God, it's like doing people's jobs way better than them. And oh my God, like, yeah.
It's insane. I mean, it's going to change so many aspects of life.
Well, I talked about it. I don't know if maybe I mentioned on here or just with you guys personally, but like, I feel like this is the jump from like the typewriter to like word processor on a computer, where we better get on the boat now and learn how to use this tool, because it ain't going anywhere. And if we want to be good at our jobs and like be relevant in 20 years, because you could bet your fucking ass companies are going to use this, because they're going to find out how efficient. Like, I just read something today that like, if you have a white collar job where you're sitting behind a computer basically all day, that's how I'm defining white collar. Like if you're basically behind a computer, you spend like 37% of your day reading emails and responding to emails. Wow. So if you like, I have already heard about people like automating their job through email with using ChatGPT. They're like, how do I respond to this? How do I send out this memo? Like, and it does a great job of doing that. I feel like this is something that we have to get on the boat for and not miss, because it's only going to get better. And like, our minds are blown now, and then they were reblown in like 6 months later.
Yeah.
Like that is not plateauing. Like, that's just going to continue to get crazier and crazier, where you're like, wow, it can do that.
Choo
choo, all aboard. You know what I mean?
Hope no one is listening from some school that I go to, but I wrote a whole presentation using ChatGPT, and it fucking reads amazing. You can't tell that a robot wrote that.
Did you submit it?
Yeah.
Did it accept it?
Yeah.
It didn't. So the tools itself cannot recognize that it was written by a bot.
And what's funny, you can ask ChatGPT if schools can recognize it. It's like, no, they can't.
Dude,
it's like it's proud of it.
This is the world we live in.
Well, and it's like
this is my wife's an educator. This is the question that they keep trying to have me on their podcast, and this is the subject that I want to talk about. What does education do?
Yes.
Because do you embrace this technology because it's going to be here, or do you shun it away and have an embarrassing factor? Because I'll tell you, my college education experience from the university here, there was a few things that like were laughable. They were like, well, we want to teach you the fundamentals. But we're going to train you on these tools that are not industry standard and you're never going to use them in practice. And it's the stupidest fucking mindset, in my opinion, to ever have, because I got a finance degree and I spent all of maybe 2 hours in my entire undergraduate program in Excel. And that was basically what I did full time for 3 years at my job. And so, like, I had to go and do, like, a bunch of shit on outside to understand those tools. And it's like, well, we don't want to just teach you one tool. It's like, but understanding, like, what the industry has to offer is so important. So if you as an educator, do you embrace this stuff and recognize that kids are going to use it to cheat on papers? Kids are going to use it to cheat on tests. They're going to fucking find ways to figure this shit out. And more and more of your stuff's online, whatever. Like, what do you do? How do you test? How do you verify where they at from a learning perspective? I don't know.
Yeah,
but you better change fucking fast, because in 5 years, this is going to be making your head spin.
Well, and it's scary. I don't even know. You need like a whole fucking committee of people to think about this, because if you think about it, if they embrace it, what ramification does that have on children that they don't have to write anything?
Yeah.
They don't, like, I understand now as an adult why they made us write those papers. It's because when you write a paper, you get a better understanding because it's how your brain works. When we have ChatGPT, as long as they know the right question to ask, it writes it for them. Yeah. And then they can literally copy and paste that, submit it. I'm sure lazy kids will. I'm sure they won't review it and make sure it makes sense. No, they'll just copy, paste, done.
Well, fuck, are the teachers even reading it? They probably just run it through some fucking thing anyway. That's that auto grader. Shit, there's tools like that left and right where they auto grades paper for organization and all that bullshit.
So it's like, what do you do? It's so scary. Because how do you not lose something when we gain this? Because it's obviously making life so much easier. But at what point is it like...
Well, this is where I feel like education's primary role is not knowledge. It's not memorizing things. Knowing 1776 is when the United States was formed. The very first president was George. Like, that to me is important for... Like, knowing history is so important, for sure. And history, definitely. Understanding mathematics, like, I think that is so critical. But I think first and foremost, what education's, especially like at younger ages, before you start like training in like some niche area that you're interested in, its primary goal has to be how to critically think, how to take information, break it down, make decisions on that. And if you can somehow educate that, right? Because that will then translate to all this other stuff. Right? Like, I honestly think, like, if you could leverage, you ask the GPT to write an essay for you, and then you like, as long as you're exposed to it, you'll learn. I think you can learn how to write just by being exposed to that stuff. Seeing how, like, thoughts are organized, like, good examples of that stuff. So I'm not saying this is going to, like, wipe out all aspects of education, but I think at its core, it has to be, like, how do you critically think, and how do you, more than ever, effectively communicate your thoughts, right? Because those two things, how can you formulate thoughts and ask questions and build up your reasoning, and then how do you communicate with other people? Because I'll tell you right now, I have seen a lot, like with younger people, especially like my age, even with at work. Like I've seen, I don't know if I think technology has rotted away a lot of our ability to communicate.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How do we prevent that from happening even more? Because this will only do it more if it goes uncontrolled. The only thing I could think is in a school aspect of how you can still retain the critical thinking, like you were saying, is assign a paper, right? They can use GPT to formulate it. They come into class, and in class, the whole class is about, okay, give the paper to the person to your, wherever, pass it around. Now you write a short paragraph on that paper and critically think about what it's saying. That way you could get past, I guess, the GPT, but it's like
everything is gonna, like, nothing can be take home. You have to make sure they're taking it away. But again, the whole point of education is to simulate, like, get you ready for the real world, right? It's like you're training for the real world. In what real world situation are you ever isolated? You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to be in that situation to be able to fucking you're not going to be in that situation at like a workplace, right?
Yeah.
Where you have to, give a summary on the spot from communicate. Like, I honestly don't know. It is an impossible task. But you know what pisses me off, Dylan, is why the fuck is this not like the political discussion in the world? We're so fucking... I could go on and on about this shit, but it's crazy. Like, the discussions that you read in the media, it's like, why are we talking about this? Who fucking cares? This is like shit so long ago. Like, where's the young people? Like, where's our money allocated for cybersecurity?
I think
where's our money for, like, where are, like, our ethics groups coming from AI? Where are we cracking down on these companies, like, that have fucking free reign to go and create this stuff, that don't even understand it fully? Like, are we misstepping? Like, why aren't we allocating why isn't this the national conversation that this is happening? Because ChatGPT, not only, like, we're talking, like, they talk about banning TikTok or whatever, and that's sort of like a meme at this point. But it's not like this is some niche thing, right? Like, before AI, it was Google Assistant. It wasn't that impressive. It wasn't that impressive, and everybody sort of had it. It wasn't making national headlines. Nobody was really afraid of it. ChatGPT hit 100 million users in 2 fucking months. That's a third of the US. Now, I know it's global, but that's a lot of people using this. And I know a lot of smart people that are fucking spooked by this, or very much intrigued, like, hey, we need to keep an eye on this, or like, we need to be having a conversation about this. And it's just not happening. We're talking about shit, and I'm not going to make this political, but we're talking about shit that is so not relevant to, like, the problems that, as a young person, and I'm sure you yourself as well, you feel the same way, that, like, we should be having this conversation at the fucking national level of, like, what are we doing to embrace this from an education standpoint? How do we adapt? Like, how do we shun it away? Do we lock it away? Like, that's definitely not the answer. But the dialogue's not even fucking happening. No one's even organized in a manner to digest this information.
They're too busy worrying about other stuff.
Yeah, pointing to the other party, and it blows my fucking mind that, like, I don't know. That's why we need a young president. We need somebody that, like, has used this technology, like, in our world, that understands, like, its risk, other than it being like, oh, that's a shiny cool thing. It's like, no, this is a serious issue. Like, when you get your bank account hacked, like, that's a fucking problem. Like, cybersecurity should be a national concern that we talk about weekly.
Yeah, and I mean, I also don't want to bring it too political, but I think that I think there's way too many old people in politics.
I agree.
All around the world, not just in the U.S. All around the world, I think there should be some type of limit placed on government as far as age. And there's a minimum age. Why isn't there a max?
Or I totally agree. Or, like, why Or like how many years removed from industry? Like where you actually did something to provide back to society. I know obviously like a government role does exactly that, but like when you have these career politicians that have just done nothing but like local government and then moved on, like at some point you're so involved in policy and you're removed from what's actually happening at workplaces. I think you lose something there.
Yeah, so
I don't know what the corrective action is, but I totally agree with that. Like these are scary problems, and I only see a certain group having this conversation.
well, and they're
it's young
scary
people.
and exciting, but the thing is it's more scary because we're not
We're not even
doing
talking
anything.
about it. Yeah.
I would be so much more excited if we were actively discussing it. If I could log on and watch a political debate about ChatGPT and how we utilize it, I would love that. I'd be like, okay, let me hear what the top brains in the world think.
Yeah.
But
no, we have to find that in podcasts from like content creators.
Yeah.
And it's like, are you doing anything like to No, like no one's asked me to do like, and they're not interested in doing like they're not gonna fucking run for whatever. Yeah. Like they're Harvard researchers or whatever. So it's like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? We're just letting this whole thing. I totally agree with you. Like, I'm always an optimist. Like I think this stuff, it's absolutely with any technology, with any degree of change, it's going to be accompanied with a degree of chaos, and the rate of change that this is going to bring is probably going to be disastrous to other things.
Well, I mean, we just talked about
job erosion. Yeah, just
school.
One aspect. Schooling, like it's going to create immense change and chaos and disruption. But with that is going to come a lot of good, which is why that change is happening, because people are adopting it to make their lives better in some way.
I mean, and it's hard because you think about the bad stuff. You think about like the school or like the job erosion, but then you also think of the good stuff. Like, imagine if they get to the point where they can create a medical AI. Oh,
yeah,
it's endless what you could do with that.
We have access to this in our pocket. So imagine like some like super remote village in Africa. It's like, hey, show me blueprints using these materials to create, so I can get running water in my village. Like, what do I need to do? And it gives you instructions on what to do, what to build. It puts it all together for you. Bam, spits it out, and you go and you have those like marching orders. Like, you could
medical
bring this
research.
Stuff. Yes,
you could. They spend labs. I have a very basic understanding of what medical labs do, but I know they test certain like combinations of genomes and scientific stuff. Imagine if you could just tell an AI, try all these combinations, and then it's like, oh yeah, this
cancer research, right?
It'd be
That's
like
huge.
I tried 1,000,000, 2.5, in 3 seconds, and it's like,
and I work 24 hours, 7 days a week.
We could essentially, if it was smart enough, it could solve it. And it is smart enough to solve it if given enough time. If you give it the right tools that we're using, it could.
Well, this stuff like, do you follow Mark Rober? Do you know who that is on YouTube?
I do. I don't watch him though, no.
He put out a new video. I forget the name of the company off the top of my head, but they do like medical supplies in some Zimbabwe, some country in Africa, I believe. But like they fly drones, like they fly packets of blood to like super remote hospitals in the country, and it's fucking incredible to see this network of drones going on. And it's like, I think of the impact of this AI stuff with like the distribution and logistics side of things, where like we have on-demand goods that we can order to our house and groceries and stuff, like, and delivery networks and stuff. Like, it's fucking crazy to think
Amazon,
like
you could order
15-minute delivery.
A little
stuff.
drone comes.
Yeah, I want dinner tonight. I want to make dinner tonight. Like, imagine you using your like voice assistant. Like, I want to make chicken and shrimp carbonara tonight. I don't have any other ingredients. Please order that stuff and express ship it, and it's on your doorstep to cook in 10 minutes, whatever, from a drone delivery. And that's what's so crazy. It's like, these drones were really cool. It was like it used a bigger drone, and they were really quiet. Like they showed the oh my god, the propeller design. It was amazing. Like the drone weighed like 50 pounds, but it was like you could have a conversation right next to it, and it was it was designed like the audio, like it was really effective. It just was silent. And so what it did was like it had a bigger drone and then it dropped, I think it was like Zipline or something. I think then that was the name of the company. But they dropped on like a cable your package down. So the package never got low. So it wasn't a risk of the propellers hitting anyone. It wasn't like a safety risk. So it could fly above your house, drop the package within like centimeter accuracy in wind. Like it was calibrated for wind. So like if it was super windy, like it could drop it exactly where you wanted. And so like it would drop it in your backyard. So you didn't have the threat of porch pirates. It would drop right on your back porch. Boom. And then take off and go back home. Wow. And these things can run like all day long, and hell, like pretty much, I think like everywhere in the like most households, not everywhere in the US, but most households are within 15 miles of some Amazon distribution center. So
then you'd get drone hunters.
That's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, this is this is what's happening. So like AI is going to have we already have AI. Like in some capacity.
Yeah.
But this is just getting it to like accelerating it past that point. But I think there's so much change. I mean, the distribution and logistics side of things excites me the most because I think that's going to have the greatest dramatic impact. Like, do you remember the days before 2-day shipping, Amazon? Like,
yeah,
online shopping didn't exist because nobody.
It took so long.
It was like. My grandma was the queen of it. She would order shit from magazines like over the phone,
like airmail.
Yes, over the phone, and then she did online shopping. She's on every damn mailing list in the damn world, but she would wait 3 to 6 months. She would forget she ordered shit, and it would show up, and they'd be like, "Oh my god, I ordered this 6 months ago." It was like the wild, wild west, and now we're so far ahead of that. Right now I have Walmart Plus. I do their grocery delivery. Mm-hmm. I sit on my ass on the couch. I order all my groceries. Anything that the store's out of stock for, they ask for substitutions. I pick a delivery time. $0. I pay an annual fee of $100. $0 delivery, and then I just tip the driver. And then I pick a 1 hour window. They drop it off at my front door, and that's my grocery shopping. I don't impulse buy any bullshit. It just comes right there, and I pick it up. I had an order come today. I pick it up, and I throw it in my pantry while I'm on my lunch break because I work from home. And it's like this is the future, man. But like at some point, I won't even have to do the delivery tip. Yeah. The drones will just drop it on my back porch for my dog to chew on.
Then you got that problem.
Well, I guarantee you there's gonna be some
dog
GPS thing that you can marker that you could put down and say put it there.
It's a specific area that's dog free
or yeah, you just have like some catch, like you buy some kind of box that you could put in your yard or whatever. I don't know. It's crazy to think what's going to be designed and implemented. So I just the education piece is how do we, because now we're really getting like as a technical society, like we're going to be leaving behind a lot of people who didn't join the train, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how does an education, like, are you going to continue to force these old archaic ways of learning and, we're going to teach you the fundamentals of, I'll never forget that shit. I was learning econometrics in college and we were using, I don't even remember the program. It wasn't R, but it was a knockoff version of R. And I just remember asking like the professor, I'm like, is this used in industry? Like, no, this software is super old and it's basically legacy. Most companies that I work with use X, and but this is a good tool to get your fingers wet on. It's like, why the fuck am I learning that? Like,
yeah.
I get the fundamentals of like, okay, this is how you formulate your thoughts and stuff like that, but 90% of when you're working in a tool is learning the fucking tool, not how to do the actual process. But I don't know. It's education's in a really bad spot right now because like teachers are super fed up, right?
Yeah.
They're super angry with how the world is operating. Like parent involvement is at, they're having to deal with the kids, the parents, School shootings are left and right. Like, that's a whole fucking thing. It's fucking scary. And, they're underpaid for what they do. And, like, administrative costs are bloating. And I don't know how you... Again, we need to be having these discussions at the national level to figure out a way out of this, because at its current pace, like, I think the whole fucking education system is like imminently like ready to collapse.
Yeah.
Because the turnover, like, for new teachers is, I think, at least in this district here, is like less than 4 years. Like 80, my wife is telling me something like more than half or 80%. I don't remember what the statistic was, but at least more than half of the teachers had already quit and moved on to another career after 5 years or 4 years.
Wow.
To think that you got a teaching degree, which is a very narrow field. You go into education. Like, that's what you can do. You're not doing that anymore. You're doing something completely different. That's fucking crazy.
And I mean, I could see it collapsing, and then I don't know if it would come back. If AI gets good enough.
Maybe AI just does the teaching.
AI takes over teaching, yeah. The kids, they just, all right, time for your AI learning
Maybe that's
segment.
the way out. Oh my God, that's creepy. AI teaching 20 children.
I could see eventually a future where that might work in a positive aspect, because the one issue it would tackle if you gave full control over to AI would be individual learning.
I was going to say, it could really cater a lesson plan for that student.
So say it'll instantly be able to tell what that student is interested in, and then, not have to teach them stuff that's boring to them, that doesn't apply to them. It could just be like, okay, it seems like you want to make movies. I'm going to teach you how to make movies, and I'm going to teach, and I'm going to use that to make other stuff interesting.
And I have a PhD plus in making movies because I have all this information. So you get like super specialized
positions. Wow. But see, that's also...
It's weird, right? Because then you're not just going to let an AI just like reign over a bunch of kids. So then you have like, aides in there that are real people. And then like they go to the AI like, hey, you should be a little harder on this person. And the AI, like, how stubborn do they program the AI? Like, no,
Turn
actually,
your stubbornness up to 7.
Evidence has been research shown, and they cite all the stuff to exactly, and you're just like, well, I think you should do it this way, and it's does it say no, or by district guidelines, I must be reduced to this statement. I don't fucking know.
And then eventually we'll get to do robots dream of electric sheep.
Oh.
And we'll have to deal with, is it alive?
That's a whole other debate, right?
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to deal with, like, rights.
Consciousness, which is something we don't even understand fully.
I don't even think we understand slightly.
No. Yeah, no, we don't even know slightly. So, I mean, that still seems a little ways off, because right now, AI, as we know, is basically just a learning model for a system. It's a tool. It doesn't currently have the ability to think for itself as far as new ideas. It'll work with given tools and then come up with...
Pull from a data set and give you the best relatable answer it can muster.
But once it starts to be able to think for itself and generate new ideas...
It'll be indistinguishable from, intelligence. At that point, you're gonna have you want to fucking get into this? Let's get into it. Like,
let's do it.
Fucking porn. Okay, let's talk about this. So you have a large community, a very large community of young men who are completely isolated from the world, pretty much, in these online worlds, whether it be gaming, whether it be chat rooms, whatever it is. Like, these guys, they work from home. They are completely, basically isolated from the world. Okay, there is a lot of them. Okay, imagine now that you give them the tool for like AI porn, where they can, to their exact specifications, put in the style of girl that they want. And now this girl, it might not even be porn, just a girlfriend experience.
Companionship.
Where now the most attractive person that they've probably ever even talked to becomes their best friend and knows their likes and wants and like engages in great conversation and it's a very rewarding conversation back and forth. You're going to have these people falling in love with it. And then you add sex on top of that. These people aren't fucking going into the world, man.
Blade Runner. It tackled that exact issue. I mean, they don't talk about what you should do with it, but there's a AI model that, you know, in this movie, it was designed to look a specific way. But as Billy says, at that point, it could look however you want it to be. And the thing is the main character, he's in love with it. And, you know, because it's like the best companion that you could ever ask for. And at that point, what else do you need? Like, what would be the incentive to actually go out?
That makes me so concerned for population
It's scary.
collapse.
Yeah.
Because like we're already below like the replacement, like people aren't having kids. And now you add on like these kinds of things where like people could be fully satisfied in these artificial relationships.
See, I do think though, at least I hope that they wouldn't be fully satisfied, that there would be something still missing that you can only get from a human to human connection. But
I'm sure. Like
yeah.
You're not going to get the touch, right? If you know in the back of your mind that it's not real, but I think that can be dismissed, especially when you add sex into there. The brain is a very fucking powerful thing. You start crossing those wires. All
it's
of a
like,
sudden, you're in love.
we get sex. Okay.
Now you think you're cheating on your girl or whatever. Your AI, your VTuber. I don't know. I really. It's kind of, we better figure out a way to incubate people because population collapse, like Elon Musk talks about this as like one of the greatest outstanding threats for humanity. And when you look at the data, it's fucking totally real. Like the 10th billion person alive will never be born. Like,
wow.
You know how we've always been like creeping up?
Yeah.
You know, I think we're at like 8 or something like that. Like, population, like for developed countries, stabilize, and they stabilize, historically speaking, below the replacement rate. So like the world is about as big as it'll ever be right now, in terms of just sheer numbers.
Unless something happens like space travel.
Unless we figure out in like incubation, like, okay, we need like for our economy. Because it's always going to come down to the economy. Like population collapse, go anywhere in any fucking place in the world. And if it's a place that has had negative population growth, go there and tell me your experience. It doesn't even have to be a lot. It can just be like 2% population loss in an area annualized over 5-10 years. You will see dramatic negative effects in that community. Big fucking time. Big time. Go to any, like, I'm serious. Go to any place in the country that's experienced that, and it's blatantly obvious. You can probably just look at the area and know whether it's growing or not, just by the feel of it. I'm lucky enough to live in a city that is growing, and we don't have that. But when you travel to these other places in the U.S. specifically, it's like, oh, this is what, like, oh, these centers are dying. Like, these businesses don't exist anymore. Oh, this looks boarded up. Like, it's amazing. Now you add that on, like, a global scale, and, like, if just people aren't reproducing because I think generally people are maybe more selfish than ever, or they realize, like, the sacrifice that you have to make to have kids. Like, it's like, oh, yeah, I'd rather just play games all day and chill by myself.
I think too, it's also a reflection of maybe the financial climate of certain areas.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's so expensive. But you know, it's interesting to think. I mean, now we're getting into like fantasy land of like incubating babies and stuff like that. But it's I mean, we're gonna have real fucking. These are conversations that need to be happening of like, when this happens, what is our response? Let's get a think tank of like what the possible outcomes are, because you see the effects of negative population growth. And thank God we have immigration in the US, where other places that are growing or dying, they're moving here to where we basically are at replacement rate in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So we're breaking even, but like how long does that stay true? I mean, those other places aren't going to flatline. Like I think Nigeria has the highest population growth in the world right now, at least for a country of its size. And it's like flatlining in terms of how many kids they have. Like I think the average woman for a little while was having like 7 or 8 kids
Holy
or something
shit.
like that. Yeah, it's like, and now it's down to like 4 or 5 already. And but like Nigeria came out of fucking nowhere in terms of their population. I think they're well over 200 million now. But that's not going to be sustainable, right? So like I don't know. These are what we need to be talking about as a country, as a
world
population, right? As a world, right? I think that. Yeah, I don't need to go into that, but as a world, I'm encouraged by the youth. I really am about their acceptance, our acceptance of change and understanding its impact and how.
I know. I was going to say we're part of youth.
Absolutely, I know. I'm not even 30. What am I talking about?
Them below us, you know.
Them youngins. But yeah, I don't know. It's.
No, yeah. From what I've seen,
I'm encouraged.
I'm encouraged by the youth. I just hope it's not by the time the youth gets to the point where they are allowed to make decisions and, do that kind of stuff. It's not too late.
Yeah.
Which I don't think it'll be, but it's definitely.
I think any policy change is always too late.
Yeah.
Because government has to be reactive. They could be proactive from a set of values, but like now we're not dealing with, I don't know. Maybe I don't even believe what I just said. I feel like I'm gonna have to think that one over. I don't know. I'm gonna have to think that one over. Yeah, do you want it to not be too late, right? Because you're thinking of it from like an existential crisis where we create something that is ultimately our demise, and I think that's because we're gamers and we think like that. Right?
Terminator,
right? Mass Effect, whatever, right? But I still think, like, even though all this stuff is so cool and we're talking about, I still think we're miles off from like true AI. Of sentient level.
I think mostly what we were talking about with ours is just it being this AI becoming this tool that's going to be started to be applied to jobs and replace aspects of jobs that we don't know how they're going to compensate, for what it's replacing. The value of this AI model versus the human value is so much greater. I would rather spend, you can spend less money on this AI model to get a better job than you would on a human.
And AI doesn't get hurt on the job place, workspace.
It doesn't talk back. It doesn't
have HR problems.
Exactly. So
doesn't need sick leave, parental leave.
It's like, I think as far as like AI as a potential danger of like, robot overthrowing or murdering us is far off. But I do think the cultural impacts of what this is changing is the more pressing matter.
Well, I know we have a couple other topics that we want to talk about, but do we want to close it out on this?
I think we'll close it out, yeah, because we went way
We're at 2 hours
there, yeah.
That was a good episode. I enjoyed it.
That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking about. We were gonna have an AI episode.
I know, and this ultimate. I think I totally curveballed it there. I was like, I want to divert for a second, and then we started talking about computer hardware to now an hour and a half of totally crazy thought. But anyway, wow. Where can people find us?
They can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter as well as any major podcast listening platform where you're hopefully listening to us now.
Yeah.
And with that, guys, remember, with the good KD, you get the dub.
Bye.
Bye.